better daily, where we work hard in our minds, bodies, and our spirits to become 1% better every single day. Download the app and join our Betterment family at betterdaily.life to catch the video version of these podcasts. Here's your host and my dad, Alex Van Houten.
What is up, Betterment family? This is Alex Van Houten in Better Daily Live. Happy Tuesday. It is Nutrition Tip Tuesday, and today we're going to go through something from a nutrition tip perspective that's going to help you on your 1% better journey. Now, Nutrition Tip Tuesday is about feeding ourselves well, because our food is more than calories, and our body builds itself out of what we eat, and food has really interesting interactions with the body that are very, very hard to describe from a caloric perspective. And so today we're going to be talking about Fodmaps. Good morning, Robin. Glad to have you, brother. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, Scott. In fact, just before I get into Fodmaps, though, I do want to say I appreciate you guys bearing with us over the last about 3 to 4 weeks as we've updated the app, and there was a bug that messed up the way that app notifications show up in both the iOS and Android operating systems. So I don't know if you've noticed or not, but it seems like Better Daily's been very quiet lately. It is not quiet. You've just not been notified. So that was fixed. I want to say it was fixed at like 2 a.m. this morning. So thank you for those of you who brought my attention to the issue. And thank you also to our awesome tech team who knocked it out, debugging things in the background. So today, Fodmaps. Fodmaps are a very interesting nutrition concept that not a lot of people know about. And it's honestly, on its face, it sounds really complicated, so I'm going to try to make it simple for you today. Now, the first question I have for you is, do you have digestive problems? You don't have to answer that in a public sphere, but that's an important question. Do you have digestive problems? What I mean by that is constipation, bloating, the other side of things, diarrhea, excessive gas, that sort of thing. The reason I ask is because Fodmaps have a lot to do with how foods interact with our large intestine. Now, up until this point, it's very possible that you've considered foods to be just a calorie thing. And fine, I harp on that enough here. But one of the things you need to understand about your food is that your food doesn't just supply energy to your body. We talk about protein, and we talk about fats, and we talk about carbohydrates, and we talk about how our body uses those things for like building blocks or energy, right? But then on another level, there are particular, particular characteristics of foods that interact with our body differently that isn't described by the calories. Scott says Fodmaps, and Robin says it's a map when you go to Fod. No. So Fodmaps is an acronym, FODMAPS. And it's an acronym that describes a characteristic of food that can change the way that your large intestine interacts with it. Okay, so if you have a sensitive digestive tract, that means perhaps the tissue of your large intestine is particularly sensitive, or you have motility issues. That means how food moves through your digestive tract. Either it moves kind of slowly or it moves too fast, right? There's kind of a sweet spot in there where things move like they're supposed to, and you don't have any problems. You don't have constipation, you don't have diarrhea. So Fodmaps describe how some foods interact with our large intestine. If you have a particularly sensitive large intestine, then Fodmaps can be a huge problem for you. So Fodmaps, what does it stand for? F is fermentable, and then it's oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. And you're like, what just happened? So let me break it down for you, okay? First of all, there are compounds in foods that are fermentable. Say fermentable. To ferment is a process that involves bacteria where certain carbohydrates, certain carbohydrates are used by the bacteria that create alcohols and gases. Okay, so fermentation is a process that we use to make beer and wine, right? So the basic concept of making a wine is you have grape juice and you let it sit for a while. And, you know, depending on what kind of wine you're you're fermenting, you might actually add some bacterial colonies and stuff to it. But what happens is the bacterial colonies in the olden days, in the ancient times, the way they made wine is they put a bunch of grapes in a wine press. It looks like a big stone basin almost with like a spout on the end of it. And somebody would actually hold on to something and walk with their feet. And they would crush the grapes, make grape juice. The grape juice would run off, right? And then they would store these grape juices in big vases, big vats, right? And they would let them sit for a while to ferment. And fermentation is the process where the bacteria, maybe some from the feet, maybe some from the vase, the bacteria metabolize those sugars in the juice. And the byproduct is gases and ethanol, right? And wine's cool. It's Jesus's first miracle in the Bible, and beer's done similarly. Hops, wheat, barley, those are allowed to ferment, and then the liquid that comes off of that's what we know as beer, right? And not everything is alcoholic. Like we've got sauerkraut is fermented cabbage. Kimchi is also a fermented cabbage dish. We also have kefir. I've talked about kefir before. That's a fermented dairy drink. So fermentation is a normal process in food. What's not good is when fermentation is happening in your large intestine, because fermentation in the large intestine is, well, messy, stinky, and painful. That's what it is. And so what we've found in the scientific community is there are foods that have higher concentrations of these fermentable saccharides. So the Fodmap fermentable oligosaccharide, disaccharide, monosaccharide, and polyols, that's what Fodmap stands for, but really it's does this food have compounds that make it easily fermentable in the large intestine? And if that's the case, if you have foods that are really high in fermentable saccharides and you're eating those on a regular basis, they're not doing your digestive tract any favors. Now, not everybody has a problem with this. Some people have great gut motility. Some people have a great gut microbiome. I could say you have a steel gut, an iron stomach. Nothing bothers you. Fantastic, wonderful. You won the genetic lottery. I'm a little jealous. Not in a sinful way. Just, it would be nice if my digestive tract wasn't so finicky. But I'm one of those people who are very sensitive to gut motility issues. And I think I've told you guys at length about wrestling with an ulcerative colitis flare-up and how my digestive tract could be pretty finicky. And it equips me to help people whose digestive tracts are also finicky. But what I'm saying to you today is if your digestive tract is finicky and you have never experimented with a low FODMAP diet, that means intentionally reducing the foods in your day that have a high concentration of fermentable oligomonosaccharides and polyols, then that's something worth doing. It's not hard. In fact, you would notice a difference in yourself within about 4 days of doing a low FODMAP diet. So I'm going to include a link to a graphic that'll help you. Robin says, what are the foods? I knew that was coming because that's important. I'm going to include a link to help you because, when people say, oh, I have celiac disease, I have to cut out wheat, right? Or I am lactose intolerant, I got to cut out dairy. That's not hard. I mean, it's difficult. Dairy's wonderful and I love wheat, right? But there's so many good things that come from both of those food groups, right? But it's easy to go, oh, does this have wheat? Yes or no. Oh, does this have dairy? Yes or no. So you just read the ingredients list, right? It's not hard. FODMAPs are hard because it's not like, does it have dairy? Does it have wheat? It's experimentally determined whether or not this food has a high concentration of these fermentable saccharides. And so the only way to know is with an experimental list. Like, this lab has analyzed these foods. These foods are high FODMAP foods and these foods are low FODMAP foods. For instance, apples. Generally, I would say apples are a wonderful fruit. They have high fiber, relatively low sugar. Fantastic. Apples are actually a high FODMAP food. Pineapple. Pineapple is actually a low FODMAP food. Has a high concentration of sugars, but has a low concentration of fermentable saccharides, right? And so what's the common denominator between FODMAP foods, it's not easy to determine. And so I will include a link in the comments to this video. And if you're catching the podcast version of this, you can find it in the show notes. I'll include a link that is a pictorial representation of high, moderate, and low FODMAP foods, where a lab has actually gone through and studied what the concentrations of these fermentable saccharides are. And I will say that when you first try a low FODMAP diet, and you're going to try it for a couple days and see if it helps, and the way you would know it would help is your digestive tract straightens up, you have less gas, less constipation, or less diarrhea, less motility issues and pain, right? And if you are wrestling with inflammation in the large intestine, then you will actually notice weight loss. Because one of the things that happen with individuals whose large intestine is really angry at them is they get a large amount of inflammation. They get a large amount of water retention through their midsection and even through the rest of their body. It can cause quite a bit of inflammation through different channels, cytokines and interleukins. And so that said, I will include a picture of this, and I would encourage you, look at the low FODMAP list and build a day out of it. What's on this list that I can do for breakfast? What's on this list I can do for lunch? What's on this list that I can do for dinner? Rather than looking at, oh no, look at all the high FODMAP foods that I love. I can't have those. What am I going to have instead? Like garlic and onions are high FODMAP foods. And unfortunately, I like to use those to season things. So when I went through a stage of getting my digestive tract on the right foot, I had to be careful not to cook with those things. And it's not that I couldn't have them forever for the rest of my life. It was just in times of digestive distress, I had to make sure that I could go back to low FODMAP, reduce the fermentation happening in my gut, give my large intestine a break, and then I could introduce those FODMAP foods that I love and not have to worry about it so much. So that is FODMAPs. I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever tried a low FODMAP diet? Do you think it would be powerful and helpful to you? Do you have questions about it? Please drop those below. Robin says, I need this in my life. Good. I hope that this is really helpful to you, brother, and that you notice a significant difference in your digestive tract because of it. Guys, this has been Alex Van Houten in Better Daily Live. Thank you so much for joining me on Nutrition Tip Tuesday. Tomorrow's Wild Wednesday. You never know what we're going to do. Until then, it's just 1%. You got this.
Thank you for joining us for 1% Better today. Don't forget to subscribe for the podcast. Leave us a raving review to tell others how Better Daily has helped you in your journey. If you want more Better Daily, download our app and join our Betterment family at betterdaily.live. Use code POD to get 25% off your subscription. That's POD, all caps, to save 25% on your subscription. We all have a cross to carry. It's later when we do it together. Go to betterdaily.live today.